I'd like to introduce to you our two moderators. We have Dr. Charles Hayes, who is a professor of physics here at the University of Hawaii and the interim dean of the School or the College of Natural Sciences. We also have a professor of English and director of the Manoa Writing Program, Dr. Thomas Hilgers, and I'm going to hand over the program to them at this time. Please welcome our moderators.
It is a pleasure to welcome you to the University of Hawaii, to the debate that Dr. Tom Hilgers and myself will moderate. Just a comment about the University of Hawaii, or the purpose of a university in general. The university is the proper place, the proper forum should be at a university, where we discuss anything. And of course, tonight's topic, therefore, is an important topic, and is one which is such that we should think critically about what is being presented. And that's one of the things that the University of Hawaii, and Tom and myself, have been involved in just recently, of promoting the university to be a place where ideas are thought of critically. As we do that, we think of the university as a place where, since ideas come, some of them carry a lot of emotion with them. That, of course, will be true for tonight's debate. So with that in mind, we must be very careful and cautious how we respond as we think critically about what is being said, because there will be people that have very strong opinions that are much different than what may be said from one of the podiums. With that in mind, let's listen very cautiously, let's think critically, and let's become very intellectually involved with what's going on. Now, at the end of the formal debate, there will be a time for questions from the floor. With that in mind, we will not have, with all the people here, time for everybody to ask questions, but there will be time for a few. We'll talk about that later with mics on the side for that at the end of the formal debate. As the program indicated, we will start off tonight with an opening statement by the theist, followed by an opening statement by the non-theist. There will then be rebuttals by each side, and then a moderated dialogue. And finally, we will have final statements of each side. At the end of that, we'll have a short break, and then we'll go to questions from the floor. With that in mind, I'll turn the floor over to Tom Hilgers.
Welcome, and thank you for having me. I hope that if there's any fainting tonight, it's from the quality of the arguments and not from the heat. I am a little concerned that we are so crowded that if anybody does have to go out for air, and I know it's quite stuffy out there, that there may not be room to proceed. So if you see somebody get up, I'll really appreciate if you move to the side so they can get through.
We have open seating on the outside balcony.
Okay. Keli'i just tells me that they have opened seating on the outside balcony, so those of you who are finding it opprobriously stuffy might want to move there already. Okay. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. William Lane Craig, who will be arguing a theist position tonight. William Lane Craig is research professor of philosophy at Talbot School of Theology in La Miranda, California. He completed his PhD in philosophy at the University of Birmingham, England, before earning a doctorate in theology from the Ludwig Maximilians University of Munich, where he was for 2 years a fellow of the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung. Got that, okay. That's impressive, isn't it? Prior to his appointment at Talbot, Bill spent 7 years on the faculty of the Higher Institute of Philosophy of the Catholic University of Louvain in Belgium. He has authored some 30 books, including The Kalam Cosmological Argument, Divine Foreknowledge and Human Freedom, Theism, Atheism, and the Big Bang Cosmology, and God, Time, and Eternity. In addition, Bill has published nearly 100 articles in professional journals of philosophy and theology, including the Journal of Philosophy, American Philosophical Quarterly, Philosophical Studies, International Studies in the Philosophy of Science, Astrophysics and Space Sciences, and the British Journal for Philosophy of Science. Bill has joined us tonight here in Honolulu from Atlanta, where he lives with his wife, Jan, and they have 2 children, Charity and John. Bill, welcome. Bill.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Victor Stenger. He will be arguing the non-theist position. Victor J. Stenger has recently retired from a distinguished international career in physics at the University of Hawaii and is currently Emeritus Professor of Physics from the University of Hawaii, as well as Adjunct Professor of Philosophy at the University of Colorado, where he now resides. Vic earned his PhD in physics at UCLA and has held visiting positions on the faculties of the University of Heidelberg in Germany, Oxford in England twice, and has been a visiting researcher at Rutherford Laboratory in England, the National Nuclear Physics Laboratory in Frascati in Italy, and the University of Florence in Italy. Vic's research career spanned the period of great progress in elementary particle physics that ultimately led to the current Standard Model. He participated in experiments that helped establish the properties of strange particles, quarks, gluons, and neutrinos. He has also helped pioneer the emerging fields of very high energy gamma ray and neutrino astronomy. In his last project before retiring, Vic collaborated on the experiment in Japan which showed for the first time that the neutrino has mass. Vic has had a parallel career as an author of critically well-received popular-level books that interface between physics and cosmology and philosophy, religion, and pseudoscience. These books include Not by Design, Physics and Psychics, The Unconscious Quantum, Timeless Reality. His latest book, Has Science Found God? The Latest Results in the Search for the Purpose in the Universe, is now available. Vic Stenger was former president of Humanists Hawaii and was named Hawaii Humanist of the Year in 1992. Turn the program over to Tom, who will be moderating the formal section of the debate.
Briefly, you note on your program that we will have 20-minute formal statements by both Dr. Craig and then Dr. Stenger, followed by 12-minute rebuttals. After that, we will move into a brief moderated dialogue, which will essentially give our debaters an opportunity to ask questions of one another. That will be followed by a brief break and then opportunities for, after final statements from both of our debaters, questions from you. So, without further ado, I invite the opening statement from Dr. Craig.
Now. Aloha, good evening. My wife Jan and I are just thrilled to have the opportunity to visit your beautiful islands. We've just spent a couple of days on Maui, and we plan to visit the Big Island and Kauai as well. And I'm also very glad to have the opportunity to be debating Vic Stenger tonight, who's emerged as a very prominent spokesman for atheism. I'm sure that we're in a good debate this evening. So, does God exist? In order to answer that question rationally, we need to address 2 further questions. First, what good reasons are there to think that God exists? And secondly, what good reasons are there to think that God does not exist? In his most recent book, Dr. Stenger claims that he can prove to a high degree of certainty that a personal God does not exist. We'll see if he can make good on that claim in tonight's debate. I think that if we're honest, we should both admit right up front that neither of us can prove his case with that kind of certainty. The very fact that we're having this debate tonight shows that this is a question on which intelligent people can disagree. People don't have debates on questions like, does Akebono exist? Or does Santa Claus exist? Because there are clear and compelling answers to those questions. But what that means is that your task is all the more difficult tonight. You're going to hear evidence both for and against the existence of God. Your job is to weigh the evidence, to see which way the scales tip. That requires a thoughtful and reflective spirit. If your mind is already made up, then you probably won't hear anything from either of us tonight that will change your mind. But for those of you who are still searching for an answer, I hope that our discussion of the evidence, both pro and con, will be really beneficial to you. Now, I'll leave it up to Vic Stenger to present the evidence against God's existence. In my opening speech, I want to sketch briefly 6 lines of evidence that weigh in favor of God's existence. Number 1, God is the best explanation for why something exists rather than nothing. This is the deepest question of philosophy. Why is there anything rather than nothing?